Alright, so here's a little video on the projects. The Provoke Shockwave, pretty much stock, running on a 42mm prop, stock 2000 kV dynamite motor, and 30 amp ESC, which is honestly ample power for just a 3S. Modified the shaft stuffing tube there and cut it so we can add a regular coupler onto it. This boat moves really nice in the water, nice and stable. Pro Boat does a good job. Also the Thunder Tiger Avanti, which I had gotten off of Amazon for about 90 bucks a while back, and the motor had burned up on me, but after many trial and error setups, this one seems to be the most reliable, and I've had it in there for almost a year now. Same Joysway 1800 kV motor with a flex shaft, 0.130. Also running a 40mm prop. It's a 90mm rudder there. It's much larger than stock. And I'm using the stock 50 amp Joysway ESC, which is ample power for that boat. You can run that on 3 or 4S. The latest one that I've been working on is the Px16 Storm Engine, I believe is what they're called. Yeah, I've taken all the decals and stuff off. It's going to be painted. But as you can see, it's a 32-inch hull, and these boats are pretty nice from the factory. The electronics, however, that they come with are fairly cheap, and the boat can only move about 10 miles an hour at max, and there is no rudder, so it steers by using the motors. It cuts off one motor, and that's how it will steer. As you can see, of course, I added the stuffing tube, and I have 31mm props on this, and they are counter-rotating. So the one on the right is turning clockwise, and the one on the left is turning counterclockwise. I'm also using a rudder off of a Joysway US1, my red boat that I have. Since I'm not using that now, I figured I'd put this on there. Also because it has this really large water pickup, which is good for multiple motors. This thing here, kind of running an off-the-wall setup here. So the ESC is a hobby wing quick run. It is not water cooled. This is something that I had laying around and I wanted to try out something different. So as you can see here, I've plugged my wires in. I actually soldered 2 connectors on each wire instead of just one. The one on the right I have connected in reverse, and the one on the left I have connected in normal order. This is so, the motors counter-rotate. So far, I haven't found any problems with stability, or one motor turning faster than the other. They seem to start at the same time, and at full throttle, they both scream at the same time. So, yeah, as you can see, I have my water cooling coming in. It goes up underneath the servo. And first, onto this left motor here, passes through, goes into the right motor, and then out the side. These are the water cooling jackets are Aquacraft. The motors are by Ghoul RC, which are fairly cheap, and they're 28mm motors. Cool part about that is you can use the stock motor mounts that come with the boat, because I believe the motors that are in there are 380 size. So it's a perfect fit. Now if you use water cooling on these, you might have to mill out the bottom of the plastic there. I just made it all flush, so it's just like a plastic plate. Bolted everything back down. Honestly, this was all stuff that I had just laying around from other boats, and I decided to try it and put it together and tried it with one ESC. The only problem is the ESC does get hot. So I do plan on running more power, so probably like a 50 or a 70 amp. And I'm also going to try it again just with the one ESC, and I'm not going to run two. I know everybody says you shouldn't run two brushless motors on one ESC simply because of the pulses that the ESC receives and that it's sending back they're not equal, I guess, but apparently it seems to be working fine because it's splitting the signal into two, obviously, and sending them to each motor at the same exact time. So it seems to be working pretty well. It also seems pretty reliable. The motors barely get warm at all. The shaft size is only a 0.125, and like I say, the props are 31 millimeters, so they're fairly small. These motors are 3000 kV, so they turn at extremely high RPM on 3S. And I tested it a couple times, once on 2S, and the boat ran good, so I bumped it up on 3S, and the thing really goes fast. Just the way that this hull's designed, there's other videos on YouTube of these things really moving 50, 60, 70 miles an hour with really simple setups. One of the main reasons why I went with the two instead of a one motor setup is for stability. I noticed on a lot of them that have just the single motor, it has a lot of torque roll, and that could cause walking. When the front of the boat, begins to lift out of the water, the only part that's touching the water is the rear of the sponsons, and it causes the boat to kind of walk a little bit. So I noticed with these two counter-rotating props, it eliminates that, obviously eliminating the rotational torque, because each side is canceling out, one side's canceling out the other. Boat takes off fast. Everything, like I say, is really cheaply done and really simply put on. Bought the hull for about $50, and I maybe had like $70 into it with the hardware. And this is probably the fastest boat in my fleet right now. So, it may not look like much, but I'll have some video up of it soon in the water and show you how fast this thing really is. But yeah, I guess that's it for now. So that's the PX16.